Hello guys, we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto returned after 4 years and captured the hearts of Konoha's strongest women, part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Kurenai sighed in irritation as she plopped down in an empty seat. Well, someone's a bit moody. A feminine voice called and Kurenai looked up to see her friend Azuki Uago giving her a look of concern. Tough day. Another voice said that belonged to one Inuzuka Hana, another friend of hers. Hana's face then turned into one of annoyance. Was it my mud of brother? Kurenai just shook her head and poured herself a cup of tea. No, I'm just a lot more tired and irritable as of late. She took a sip of tea and sighed as her body relaxed a bit. Are you taking too many missions? I mean, I know your track record is almost perfect, but it isn't worth overworking your body. Uago said as she took a sip from her own drink. Hana nodded in agreement. Oh, I'll tell you what's up in her panties. Anko proclaimed as she took her seat with a bottle of sake. Or should I say what's not in her panties? The snake mistress said with a perverted grin. Not now, Anko. Kurenai said as she pinched the bridge of her nose in annoyance, though a slight blush crawled on her face. Hana and Uago looked at each other in confusion and then back at Anko, who was grinning and wagging her eyebrows. Kurenai, Uago started with a small grin. Kurenai looked back her two friends before blushing in slight embarrassment. Who's the special guy? Hana finished with an impish grin and Kurenai blushed a brighter color. What? No one. She stuttered out as her eyes quickly looked away from her friends. Anko is just playing around. She shot a quick glare to the Junin who just continued to grin at her. Nai-chan is going through withdrawal. Anko said as she took a sip from her cup. What? Hana and Uago yell rocked the shop and Anko couldn't hold in her laughter as she saw the all-composed Yuhi. Kurenai tried to shrink herself in her chair. How were you not going to tell us, Kur-chan? Hana whined out. We promised to hold nothing between us. Uago said in a voice that definitely contrasted with her quiet and calculative personality. Is he handsome? Is he a shinobi? How muscular is he? What are his moral values? Does he have a big package? Kurenai was almost overwhelmed with the questions until Hana said the last one and her face glazed over a bit as a blush dark enough to rival her eyes came on her face. Hana saw the look and slumped back into her seat with a whistle. Well, damn, Kur-chan. Who's the lucky guy? Kurenai shook out of her mini daydream and chose not to say anything. Anko snickered and the crimson-eyed beauty shot her another glare. Oh no, you do not choose to be quiet in this situation. Uago said as she crossed her arms. So, who's he? Her eyes then got wide. You played hide the sausage with Asuma, haven't you? No. Kurenai answered with a slight guilty look that thankfully no one caught. Look, I need to get ready for a team meeting, so I'll catch up with you guys later. And with that Kurenai quickly shunshed away before her friends could say anything more embarrassing. Hana pouted as Uago looked at Anko. Anku. Uago sang, making the snake mistress grin. Well, of course I know who it is, but where's the fun in telling you? Bye, girls. She too disappeared, leaving two annoyed and pouting kunoichis. With Naruto. Naruto glared at Kakashi, who returned the glare from his spot on the ground. You just let an Akatsuki member, people who are after my, go. The blonde said as he glared hardened. These bastards killed Gaara and you ruined my chance for revenge. He gritted his teeth as fire and lightning surround his fist. Then as quickly as it came, it all disappeared and Naruto sighed in annoyance. Great. I ruined my jacket for this bullshit. Naruto, I felt the energy in that attack. Kakashi said tiredly. Were you trying to destroy the whole damn area? He yelled before groaning in pain. The blonde rubbed his scruff. If I said yes, would you be angry at me? He grinned sheepishly at the down nin, who only looked at the man in confusion. But what's done is done and he's probably not dead, right? Kakashi sighed. I used Kamui, so there's no telling where he's at. Though I also did it with your attack, so he's probably dead no matter what. Right now I can't feel a single thing. Naruto walked over with a grin. So you can't feel this? He kicked the nin in the side and received a harsh glare. Sorry. Though his grin said otherwise. Just checking for scientific purposes. My eternal rival. Has your flames of youth gone out? Naruto looked over and rolled his eyes. And there's the rest of our group. Late that night, Suna was in the mood of celebration. Their cage has returned thanks to the help of Konoha and the late Lady Chio. The usual quiet village was loud with the cheers and laughter of many villagers and children. Decorations were hung around and vendors sold gifts and novelties. Alright, now we're talking, Naruto said with a big as chugged down a bottle of some alcohol. I was thinking you guys had only piss and water to drink. He said with a chuckle as he wiped his mouth and swung the bottle. I shall not let Naruto-kun defeat me in this drinking challenge. Lee proclaimed as he tried to match Naruto in his drinking, which was humanly impossible. Neji looked at this teammate with annoyance as he calmly drank his tea. The bar the group was currently in was loud with music and laughter. Damn it, Lee. Be careful. Sakura scolded before an empty cup was thrown at her face. You're on a thin line, Naruto. She growled as she clenched her fist. The blonde only rolled his eyes. Oh, lighten up a bit and drink something, or should we change your profession to buzzkill? Haruno Sakura, the official buzzkill. I bet parents tell their kids not to have too much fun or else they'll get visited by Sakura at night. Kankuro laughed with his own cup and Gaara lips twitched upwards. Sakura growled as she got up and walked away, muttering something about perverted blondes and sleeping. The feeling is mutual, honey. Naruto called out jokingly before taking the last drops in the bottle. Your teammate is a buzzkill? Gaara asked, and Naruto looked at him as he opened another bottle. Why does she kill the buzzes? Naruto almost spit out his drink as he held in his laughter while Kankuro snickered. It's a name for someone who hates fun, Gaara. Kankuro said as Gaara nodded in understanding. A hand slid over Naruto's chest and both brothers were surprised to see their sister Temari leaning over a smirking Naruto. Well, speaking of fun, do you guys mind if I borrow Naruto for a little bit? He felt her press into his head and his smirk got wider until he smelled it. His eyes darkened and he quickly popped out of his seat with his drink and took Temari's hands. Yeah, I promised Temari that I would show her, one of my special techniques, yeah. And just like that, they both were gone in an eruption of fire. The other occupants in the bar looked at the spot before shrugging and continued doing what they were doing. A special technique. Maybe we should go see as well. Gaara said with a confused look. I have a feeling that his technique should only be for Temari's eyes only. Temari's room. Naruto pushed Temari against her door as he invaded her mouth with his tongue. He held up her right leg as he slowly ground his clothed self into her, making the kunoichi moan in his mouth. Her hands tangled themselves in his fur-like hair as she pushed his face closer to hers. Naruto took his mouth off hers as he scaled down her neck with nips and kisses, causing the kunoichi to shiver into him. Now this is a proper celebration, he said with a grin. Another body pressed into his back as hands roamed around his chest before a hand dipped into his pants. Naruto broke the kiss and took a quick glance behind him to see a grinning Tenten. Oh. Temari-chan thought she might need a little help. Tenten whispered as she pumped him a few times and kissed his cheeks. Naruto grinned and reconnected his lips to Temari, who happily accepted the gesture. Naruto groaned as he felt Tenten pump him slower and harder. Temari smirked into the kiss as she pushed Naruto back and Tenten took her hands out of his pants to join Temari's side. The two kunoichi guided Naruto back onto Temari's bed as Temari settled herself between his legs. Tenten quickly got to removing his jacket and mesh shirt before mashing her lips to his. Her hand rubbed his scruff while the other one groped all over his muscular chest. Temari felt herself become wetter as she watched them claim each other's mouth. The sandy blonde then turned her attention to the monster that was trapped behind his pants. She pulled down his pants and was almost slapped in the face by the large anatomy. She licked her lips and shakily grabbed him. Naruto broke the kiss to growl in pleasure as he took a sip of his drink that he magically still had in his hands. Tenten's eyes widened and darkened in lust as she gazed on Naruto's manhood. Yep. Get that reaction every time. He chuckled as he took another sip and Temari began to jerk him. Tenten grinned as she grabbed the hand that had his drink and took a chug for herself and quickly went back to his lips. She then took the bottle and placed it on the stand next to bed. Now with a free hand Naruto went quickly for her right and gave it a tight squeeze, earning a long moan from the brunette. Temari took a deep breath as she slowly took him in her mouth. Naruto's body jerked as one hand came out to rest on her head. Temari looked up to see Tenten removing her top and Naruto quickly latching on the closet nipple. The sight made Temari moan as she used a hand to pleasure herself and bobbed her head on his shaft. Naruto groaned against Tenten's nipple as his other hand slipped into her hands and thrust a finger in her. Tenten shivered before squealing in pleasure as his finger began to go faster. The scent of arousal flooded the room and Naruto growled before removing his hand and mouth. He stopped Temari, who gave a whine of disappointment. I'm not a slow type of guy. His voice was heavy with lust and both girls moaned at it. He pointed to Tenten's pants and Temari's kimono. Off. Both girls looked at each other before grinning and nodding. Naruto sat almost dumbfounded when he saw Temari quickly mashed her lips with Tenten. Both girls shed each other clothes off with licks, nips, and kisses in between. Tenten laid on top of the blonde kunoichi whose fingers were currently in her. Temari's other hand was squeezing and rubbing the brunettes as Tenten kneed Temari's. Naruto stood in a trance-like state before grinning stupidly. Oh, they definitely done this before. Being as quiet as he could, he positioned himself behind the kunoichis and gripped one of their hips. Happy day, he sang to himself. Temari moaned loudly as Naruto slowly pushed himself in. Her hands faltered in Tenten and her breaths came out as gasped. I hope you guys didn't forget about me, he said as he leaned over Tenten, trapping the two girls under him. Well, prepare yourselves, cause none of my women walk straight the day after. The next day. Once again, I thank you for the help, Gaara said as he clasped hands with Naruto. I'm forever in your debt. The blonde nin just waved him off. None of that professional shit, we're friends, brothers even. Gaara nodded with a very small smile as he released Naruto's hands. Hope the journey back home isn't boring, Kankuro said as he grin came on his face. Especially since Temari isn't there. The shinobi was then smashed down on the ground by a blushing Temari. Shut the hell up, Kankuro. Naruto and Tenten chuckled as the rest of the Konoha nins gained a confused expect Neji because well he's Neji. I'll be sure to stop by Suna every now and then, Naruto said as he winked at Temari. She smirked as her eyes raked over him and landed on Tenten. I'll make sure I'm not a stranger in Konoha. Tenten gave her a sensual look and Naruto coughed as he sniffed the air. Alright Konoha, we go, he said as he began walking, knowing the Kazekage wouldn't like to see his sister being bent over and by him or Tenten. In some meeting room, a lone table stood in the middle of a well-lit room. On it was a map of the elemental nations in couple of pieces. 6 people were present at the table, 3 on each side. I say we start right here. A large finger pointed at Aim no Kuni and placed a piece down. This will be our first wave. Nins we can do well without, like weak genins and chunins. Maybe civilians to trip them off. The occupants hummed in thought. Well, it would be a good idea if Aim wasn't so isolated from the world. A male voice said as he grabbed another piece and placed it on Mizu no Kuni. They have no affiliation with Konoha. In addition, the mist will do well in hiding our troops and Konoha would never expect it. You forget, Four Eyes, that they don't have an affiliation with us either and will see this as an act of war. A gruff voice said as he grabbed his own piece before slamming it on Konoha. I say we forget this stupid useless wave strategy and hit these weaklings dead on. May I remind you what happened last time Iwa tried to do that? There's no yellow flash this time. Enough, the Tsuchikage said as he slammed both hands on the table and leaned over. We don't have time to bicker like children. Every day Konoha gets stronger and we're stuck planning. A pale finger gently grabbed a piece and placed it on Tetsu no Kuni. His yellow-slitted eyes looked on with a small smile. You're right, time is something we don't have. 3 days later. Konoha. I see well, excellent work everybody. You are all dismissed except for Naruto and Sakura. Tsunade said as Team 9- guy, who took Kakashi to the hospital, nodded and left the room. Tenten winked and blew a kiss at Naruto, who just grinned and left the room. He heard a snort from Sakura and rolled his eyes. Oh, I'm sorry, is there a problem? He asked with fake concern. 'Cause the last time I checked, I don't have to report who I fucked to you. So you admit it then? Sakura said as she sent an accusing finger at the blonde. You had with Tenten while on a mission. Naruto rolled his eyes again as he scratched his beard. Well, for one, the mission technically was over with. I mean, if you still want a report on that, I guess I could start with the way her tongue was practically wrapped around my. All right, enough with the both of you. Tsunade tried to say sternly, but Naruto grinned at the pink that dusted her cheeks. While there's no rules against sleeping on a mission, it's still highly unprofessional. Boom! Naruto exclaimed with a grin. So I can whoever I want and you can finally hop off my metaphorical. Sakura frowned and looked away. Anyway, before he died, Sasori revealed that he had a spy in Orochimaru's ranks working for him. Sasori was supposed to meet up with this spy in 5 days at the Tenchi Bridge. Tsunade hummed in thought. It could be a great opportunity to get a leverage on Iwa and that snake bastard. But who to send for this mission? She then focused back to the two nins. One was giving her a bored look and the other was a hopeful one. Tsunade-sama, Sakura proclaimed as she straightened her back and gave the Hokage a serious look. I would personally like to volunteer for this mission. The blonde Hokage raised an eyebrow. Well, that was easy. She's a great medic, and with Orochimaru that means the Uchiha is involved, so she is better motivated than most. Tsunade nodded. Alright Sakura, you shall be a part of the ambush mission. The Pinkett smiled widely and both females turned to Naruto. What? The blonde asked before looking down and frowned. Yeah, I know my jacket is ruined. Now I have to buy a brand new one. Aren't going to join the mission, Naruto? Sakura asked with a surprised look. Naruto scoffed. Yeah, that. I would rather relax here in the village. Both kunoichis couldn't believe what they heard. Well, Tsunade had a feeling. They might give us information on Sasuke-kun. Sakura said. Okay, and Naruto said as he rolled his eyes. Why would I care about that psycho? Because he was your brother. You even said so. You promised that you would bring him back. Sakura screamed at him and Naruto scratched his beard. You're right, I did promised. And now I'm making a new promise. If I go on this mission and I see this asshole, I'm going to kill him. He said darkly, and Sakura was shocked into silence. He then gave Tsunade a fanged grin. Well then Tsunade, I guess you got another member on this ambush team. He gave Tsunade one last glance and walked out of the room. With Kurenai. So how many times did he come? Was he a virgin? Of course not. You girls know Nai-chan loves guy with experience. Define experience. Kurenai just sighed as she pinched the bridge of her nose. Ever since Hana and Yuago found out about her special friend, they have not stopped hounding her for information and his identity. To make matters worse, Anko, knowing damn well who is, kept giving them hints. She leaned her head onto her hand as she thought about him. The way he would tightly hold onto to her as he whispered jokes and compliments into her ear. How he would leave feather kisses all over her body. The way he thrust in her. Neither would it be slow and hard nor fast and passionate, just everything in between. She remembered how his light scruff would tickle her face whenever they cuddle, or how he would make sure she wasn't hurt whenever their love making would get so rough and animalistic. She was broken out of her thought by Anko tapping her on her forehead. What is it, Anko? She said with a glare as the snake mistress broke her out of her daydream. She then looked to see her three giving her an impish and devious smirks and grin. Whatcha thinking about Chan? Hannah almost sang as Kurenai face darkened a bit. Is it you, lover? Jay, just shut up, Hannah. Anko and Yuago snickered as Hannah grinned got wider. I hope there isn't a problem over here. A husky voice called out behind Kurenai, and all four kunoichis turned to see a grinning tall handsome bearded blonde man with whiskers. Sup, Anko, Hannah and Yuago. Yuago said almost absent-mindedly. Naruto's grin widened before he looked at the last kunoichi as he took in a deep breath to sniff the air. Hello to you too, Kurenai. His voice sounded heavy with lust as his eyes darkened. Hey Naruto. Kurenai couldn't help the blush that crawled on her face as her eyes roamed his body hungrily. Making up her mind, she stood quickly and grabbed the man by his ear. We need to talk, she quickly said as she shunted away. Anko grinned as she saw the other women still in their trance-like state. That was Uzumaki Naruto, Hannah whispered, and Yuago nodded as they both looked at Anko. Oh yeah, I definitely knew. Kurenai's apartment. So what do we need to talk, eh? She quickly crashed her soft lips into his, shutting him up. Naruto mentally shrugged and kissed her back as he pressed her up against her front door. He lifted her up as her strong legs wrapped themselves around his waist. His lips then went to her necks. You kept me waiting for too long. She moaned out, and Naruto grinned into her neck. I'm sorry, allow me to make it up to you. He growled seductively and ripped her outfit off with a hand. Not wanting to be upped again, she quickly pulled down his pants and pumped him a few times. Her hands then went back around his neck as he thrust himself in her. I missed you, Naruto-kun. She squealed as he pistoned himself up in her. She raked his back as the door gained a few cracks from the blonde hard thrusts. Naruto looked her in the eye as he reconnected their lips and mashed their bodies together as close as he can. One hand gripped her for support as the other laid tight against the door, the cracks widening. I'm going to show how much I missed you. The blonde growled before both of his hands gripped her and carried her over to the closet flat object, which so happened to be the kitchen table. He laid her down as he pushed in her, the table squeaking in protest. Hokage's office. His lips pressed onto her own, and despite her weak mental protest, she responded hastily. Her hands felt all around his chest as he picked her up and sat her down in his lap. She felt his promising length and moaned as he palmed and kneed her enormous and sensitive. The foxy grin never leaving his face. You're so beautiful, Tsunade-chan. Tsunade. A voice croaked out, and just like that her daydream was ruined by two old bats. The buxom Hokage groaned in disappointment. What? She practically snapped back. What is this we're hearing of you letting that traitor on the ambush mission? Kohuru spat out, and Tsunade felt a headache coming along. He untied her pigtails and rubbed her back gently. His hands ran all over aching muscles before gripping her voluptuous backside. A moan escaped her lips and he chuckled. You're so stressed, Su-chan. A hand made its way down till it touched her wet slit. He hasn't got a proper evaluation, Homaru said, and Tsunade groaned again. If your evaluation means having a Yamanaka looking through his mind, then no. He came back to help us with Iwa and Orochimaru, and if you're counting the fact that he left, then he's much of a traitor as the damn Uchiha. Tsunade said with a glare, and the two old advisors frowned. Fine, but seeing how you choose the two nins for the ambush mission, we will choose their teammate. Kohuru pronounced, and Homura nodded in agreement. Tsunade growled before nodding her head. Kohuru grinned. Good, Danzo. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and frowned as the bandaged warhawk slowly walked into the room. Of course they'll bring that bastard in here, but they forget that I get to choose the Junin. In some hideout. Your report. Oh, they're dead. But you should see the area we found Deidara in. There's literally nothing left but a huge crater. The original voice hummed. Was Deidara's own doing? No. It was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. I see. Itachi was correct then. The voice then cleared its throat. No matter. Casualties are casualties. Start the retrieval of the Nibi and its Jinchuriki. The next day. Konoha. Asuma sensei, what's up with you? For the past week you looked like someone stole you cigs. Team 10 own Yamanaka Ino asked as she and her team were walking to their usual restaurant. And true to her words, Asuma looked sad and angry as both emotions swirled around his face. The troublesome blonde is right. Nara Shikamaru called out lazily as he walked with his head behind his head. What gotten you so down? Maybe he hasn't been eating as much. Akamichi Choji said between munches of his chips as he offered his bag to their bearded Junin. I'm fine, don't you worry guys. Yet that was the opposite of what he was feeling. Is it Kurenai-sensei? Damn that little minx. But true to her words, it was the crimson-eyed Junin and her sudden absence from their relationship. Before they were enjoying each other's company and were the closest they ever been. But now he hasn't seen or talked to her in the past week, going on 2. He was worried until a rumor went around that she was with somebody, yet no names came up. He looked over at his blonde student before sighing and shaking his head. Is it that obvious? His shoulders slumped when all 3 of his students nodded to him. Great, he muttered. I mean, you were happy and smiling, but the moment you haven't seen her in, like what, a week, you've became this sad depressed man. Ino said bluntly before rolling her eyes. Just go talk to her already. Shikamaru sighed and nodded in agreement. Yeah, your attitude is becoming troublesome. Everything thing is troublesome to you, ya lazy bastard. Ino said with a tick mark. I know. Choji chuckled at his teammates before pointing at the shopping district. Isn't that Kurenai-sensei coming out of the shopping district? His 2 teammate and sensei whipped their head around to find Kurenai with her arms crossed looking away from a blonde man that was walking next to her. He carried a box of some sort on his shoulders as he chuckled nervously. Many times do I have to apologize? Naruto asked with a grin. Besides, it's half of your fault anyways. My fault. Kurenai looked back at him with a look. You encouraged me, he simply said as he adjusted the box for a new kitchen table on his shoulders. But don't worry, this one has metal supports guards, so we're all good. Naruto chuckled nervously as Kurenai just crossed her arm and looked away to hide the blush on her face. Whoa, hey Naruto. The couple looked up to see Team 10 and someone Kurenai was trying her best to avoid. Well, I'll be damned, Naruto said as his eyes raked over Ino's form before a quick glare from Kurenai made the womanizer quickly look over to Shikamaru. Oh great, now we have 2 troublesome blonde here. Shikamaru muttered and Naruto grinned. If that's your way of saying you miss me, then I miss you. Naruto chuckled. Sup Choji, still eating I see. The large man smiled widely and nodded as he stuffed his mouth again. And Ino, it's a great pleasure seeing you again. Ino just stood there in shock. She knew Naruto was back thanks to Sakura, but the woman never said how much of a hunk the man looked. The way he was holding the box made her wish she was in its place. Her eyes traveled down as they took in his muscular frame. Naruto chuckled as he poked her forehead. You okay in there? She quickly squeaked and blushed a dark red. Hey Naruto. Hello Asuma-san. Kurenai said with a small smile and the bearded Junin returned her one. Hey Kurenai-chan. He replied back, making Naruto raised an eyebrow as he looked between the 2. They aren't. The blonde thought in denial as he shifted the box. We should really catch back up Kurenai-chan. How about tonight at 8? We can go to the restaurant we always went to. Asuma offered with a little push, literally, from his team. Oh shit. They are. Well we're. Naruto thought with a grin as he looked at Kurenai's face. That sounds like a really good idea Asuma, but I promised Naruto-san that I would give him some genjutsu training and we soft have to build me a new kitchen table. She muttered the last part and gave Naruto a look to object. The blonde man just coughed to keep from laughing. Oh okay then, maybe next time. He said dejectedly. What happened to your old kitchen table? It broke. Kurenai said simply before giving Asuma one last smile. Well, we should be going. She nudged Naruto with her elbow, who was currently staring Ino down with a hungry look. The blonde female was returning the gaze. Naruto-san. Kurenai said with what everyone thought was a warning, but to Naruto it was a sound of a whine. And who was he to deny his girl? Besides, it's not like that table was going to be fixed today. Of course, Kurenai-sensei. She ignored the blush and walked past Team 10 with Naruto following behind her. Sorry about Kurenai-sensei, Choji said as he tried to soothe his down sensei as his teammates kept walking with Ino trance-like state. Yeah, Asuma said. He looked behind him to see Naruto gripping Kurenai's and giving him a smirk of victory before they disappeared in a plume of smoke, missing the glare Asuma sent to him. 4 years. Somewhere under Konoha, in a dim-lit room, a figure was found kneeling in front of a bandaged man. The man's face seemed to be in a permanent scowl as he cleared his throat. As of now, your mission is to gather information on Orochimaru by any means necessary. If there's a chance you encounter one Uchiha Sasuke, I want him eliminated. Yes, Danzo-sama, the monotone voice replied, their heads still facing the ground. And what of my teammates on this mission? Danzo hummed in thought. Keep a close eye on the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and besides that, nothing. Yes, Danzo-sama. The old war veteran lips twitched in a small grin. Now rise and embrace your new codename. In the marketplace. Of course she had a fucking mission. Naruto mumbled as he walked through the semi-busy marketplace, ignoring the glares and lustful stares of the villagers, his hands behind his head. What to do? What to do? Well, the blonde didn't feel like getting drunk, and killing someone was definitely off the list. So it's time for the next best thing. But who to? He muttered as he stopped in a slightly familiar area of the marketplace that seemed almost deserted. Huh. Wait, I remember this road. He kept walking down till a particular shop came up. A flower shop. Bin fucking go. He walked inside and saw one Yamanaka Ino dozing off on the counter with a magazine under her. The blonde grinned. Ah, cute. He silently walked around the counter and situated himself behind her. Now, how to go about this? An idea popped in his head and he had to stop himself from laughing. He leaned himself on her, making sure to press himself on her bottom. Anew. He sang as he slowly ground himself in her. The kunoichi moaned and unconsciously tried to press herself more into the blonde man. Wakey. Wakey. Naruto has a surprise for you. The kunoichi stirred as she slowly opened her eyes. Ino looked around the shop before a hand wrapped around her waist, freezing her in her spot. She slowly turned her head to see a grinning Naruto, before she moaned in pleasure when he thrust his hips. Welcome back to the land of the living. The man grinned as he ground hips into her again. En Naruto. Ino moaned as she bit her lip and closed her eyes in pleasure. What are you doing? She tried to say seriously. Well, hopefully you, unless you want me to stop. He grinned as he stopped his thrusts and Ino almost moaned at the loss of contact. Do you want me to stop? He reached up and cupped her, making the blonde female moan again as she had a mini debate in her head. Get laid by a fucking Adonis or... She lost her train of thought as a hand dipped into her pants and Naruto began to ground into her again. Oh Kami, more. She moaned out as a finger made its way inside her. Naruto chuckled as he added a second finger and felt himself hardening against her. Ino just leaned back on him as her head laid on his shoulders as his fingers had their way with her now dripping slit. Naruto kneed her as he rubbed her budding nub with his thumb, his lips sucking and nipping at her neck. Ino took one hand of the counter to reach behind her and fist his hair, the other hand laid on Naruto's as he groped her chest. Almost there. The overwhelming simulations were too much for the young kunoichi and she came with a loud scream. Naruto chuckled and he slowly removed his hands and took a step back and Ino slumped over the counter with a pant. Well, someone's a screamer, he said jokingly before he was suddenly leaning against the counter and Ino was kneeling in front of him. You think that's funny, Uzumaki? Ino said as she pulled down his pants and was almost smacked in the face by his rather large anatomy. Oh my Kami, she said with an amazed voice and a hint of fear. Oh come on, it's not that small, is it? He grinned before widening his eyes as Ino engulfed him in her mouth. Ho ho, what have you been doing for the past 4 years? Ino bobbed her head before releasing him from her mouth to jerk him. Shut it and enjoy. She flipped her hair over her shoulder and took him in her mouth again. Oh bossy. Naruto snickered out as a hand landed on Ino's head. Take control. Ino grinned around him. She's going show that cocky bastard. She sucked and bobbed her head, jerking the parts that she couldn't fit. Naruto relaxed and Ino felt her grin return. She sent chakra to her mouth and watched in glee as Naruto groaned. Oh shit, the hell was the man groaned again as two hands came to rest on Ino's head. You tricky little vixen. He began to thrust himself in Ino slowly as she kept up her chakra technique. Soon Naruto grunted as he released himself in her mouth. Well damn Miss Yamanaka, you used those 4 years well. Ino swallowed Naruto's seed before standing up and removing her civilian shirt and pants. She sat up on the counter and presented herself to him. Quiet Uzumaki and me. Can I get a please? He laughed out as he positioned himself towards her dripping snatch. A thought came to his head and he lightly teased her slit. But what about dear ol' Sasuke-kun? What about the bastard? Good answer. He then quickly thrust in as Ino's moans grew louder. She wrapped her arms around his neck as he legs wrapped around his waist. Naruto groaned with her tightness and pistoned himself in her. Ino laid her head on his shoulders trying to muffle her screams of pleasure as he picked up the pace. Naruto. More. More. Naruto wrapped one arm around her hips as the other laid flat against the counter. Ino's nails raked on his back as Naruto nipped at her neck. The counter was groaning out its own protest as the two blondes went at each other like animals. Konoha Hospital. So you're sending Sakura and Naruto on this ambush mission? Kakashi asked as he sat on his bed. Tsunade nodded. Yes, Sakura, as you can imagine, quickly volunteered. She then paused before sighing almost sadly. Jiraiya looked at his fellow Sannin with a confused look. How is Naruto? You know I haven't seen the blonde brat in 4 years. He's changed a lot, Jiraiya-sama. Kakashi said while the Toad Sannin scoffed. How much could that brat change? Kakashi narrowed his eyes and looked over at Tsunade. You didn't tell him yet. Jiraiya gained another confused look. Tsunade sighed before rubbing her head. I was hoping to find a way to break it to him. Now Jiraiya, before I tell you this, I need to do 2 things. 1. Stay cool and collected, and 2. Don't jump to conclusions. She said seriously, and Jiraiya nodded sharply to her and he leaned on the windowsill and crossed his arms. I don't like the sound of this, Tsunade Haim. Well, during the retrieval mission of that damn Uchiha brat, Kakashi flinched a bit. Naruto ran into Orochimaru and did exactly what you think. Jiraiya shook his head and chuckled as Tsunade continued. Naruto was dying and did something that could cause problems with the Akatsuki once they find out. No. Jiraiya whispered as he quickly stood on his feet. The brat's an idiot, but he's not that stupid. When faced with death, we do a lot of stupid things. Kakashi said, but according to Naruto, the Kyuubi gave him some new techniques. Tsunade nodded in agreement. His control over the element shave increased tremendously. Imagine my granduncle's control over water, but with the main 5 elements. I have yet to do a physical checkup, but somehow his strength and durability have increased, probably beyond human means. She then turned to Quiet Man in the room with them. And that's why I need you to keep an eye on him. There's no telling what else the Kyuubi did to his body. The man nodded before looking over to Kakashi. Is there anything else I should be careful about, Kakashi-senpai? Only one. Don't underestimate him. With Naruto. Who's the man in the world? Me. Naruto sang to himself with a bottle in his hand as he walked down Konoha. Uke-chan can suck it, Orchi-chan can kick the bucket. Suddenly Naruto jumped over a black figure and narrowed his eyes. Hey, watch WH the The all-black tiger growled before taking a swipe at the blonde ninja who just jumped back and held a finger out. Bang! A fireball crashed and exploded the tiger, making black ink to splash everywhere. Ha! Take that, you piece of shit! He heard multiple growls and dodged a swipe from one tiger and jumped over a lunge from an ink wolf. He kicked away an ink bear but unfortunately dropped his bottle. Okay, this. He stomped on the ground and the area shook before stone spikes sprouted from the ground, skewing the ink animals. He stomped his foot again as the spikes sunk back into the ground. He looked around till he spotted someone on a roof looking down at him with a paintbrush. That owes me a drink. He growled before he disappeared in a flash of lightning. His attacker looked on in confusion till a finger was pointed in their face by Naruto. His speed is incredible. Alright, so unless you want half a head, I suggest you start explaining. The womanizer then took a long glance at his silent enemy to see that they had a Konoha Hittite and that they were very pale female. She still had an impassive look as she gazed back at Naruto. I see, you are more than what they say. But to me you still look like a boy. And with that she disappeared in a shunshin, leaving a very confused Naruto. What in the absolute? He then stuck a hand down his pants and sighed. Phew, she scared me for a moment. Yamanaka flower shop. And he changed so much. Did you know that he had with Tenten while we were on a mission? He's a drunkard who only cares about the next girl he's gonna lay with. That's nice, Sakura. Like he threatened to kill Sasuke-kun on this mission. Even after he promised me that he'll bring him back. Oh really? And, okay, what's wrong with you? Sakura looked at her friend who gazed at the door with lidded eyes and a goofy smile. Nothing at all, Ino said as her smile widened. 3 days later. Hokage office. Naruto grumbled as he made his way up to Tsunade's office, making sure to send a suggestive wink to Shizune on his way in. Inside the office he saw 2 new people, one of them brought a smirk to his face. Well, if it isn't the bitch that owes me a damn drink. He held up a finger to her with a grin. I forgot to blow your brains out before. Naruto, stop it, Tsunade commanded, and Naruto placed his hand back in his pocket with a sigh. Of course, Tsunade. Anyways, now that this late bastard is here. Naruto chuckled. You all know your mission. The 4 of you shall be the new Team 7, and until further notice Yamato is going to be your Junin sensei and Saya is going to be your new teammate to replace the Uchiha. You can't be serious, Tsunade-sama. Sakura practically yelled out. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Well, it's about damn time. He then turned to Saya as his eyes raked over her body. I still don't like you, but I'm sure we could come up with some middle ground. He said with a devious smirk. Saya smiled widely as her eyes closed. Maybe, but you're still to me. Naruto's eyes gained a mischievous smirk as he began to zip down his pants. Quote question mark. Care for me to prove you wrong? Naruto. Tsunade yelled as pink dusted her cheeks. Sakura also looked away with a light pink blush on her face. The man just grinned and zipped up his pants. Ah, that's right, Tsunade want to get a peek of it on her own time. He chuckled out as he didn't dodge the paperweight thrown at his face from the Red Hokage. Shut the hell up. Now prepare to leave for your mission. The 4 nins nodded. Good, and Naruto, where's the necklace I gave to you? The blonde raised an eyebrow before sighing. Freeing the Kyuubi didn't come without any consequences. Your necklace, well, it was destroyed to say the least. Tsunade froze in shock before slumping and placing her head in her hands. Get out, she whispered. Tsunade-sama. I said get the hell out. The blonde Hokage said angrily as the 3 nins left. Naruto looked at Tsunade with saddened eyes before he too left. Outside to Konoha walls. Alright, the Tenchi Bridge is about a 3-day run, 2-day if we're quick. Now let's move. Yamato commanded as the 3 nins nodded and they took to the trees. Naruto sighed to himself, wishing he had a bottle of sake or some alcohol. Great way to break the news to her, but she wouldn't understand the true reason. Sakura took a worried glance at her blonde teammate. Naruto, are you okay? Why wouldn't I be? Well, with what happened with Sue? Well, I'm fine and you shouldn't be concerned with it. Naruto said a little harsher than usual as he moved up so he was in the front. Sakura looked at him back with a sad look. Why were you against me on your team? Saya asked. She got closer to Sakura. Was the Uchiha really that loved? Well, Naruto saw Sasuke-kun as his brother and he's our teammate no matter what. The Pinkett said confidently. Saya's head tilted in confusion. Even when he betrayed Konoha to join Orochimaru. Sakura bit her lip before nodding. Sasuke-kun grew up alone with only the hatred of his brother as motivation. I believe that once Sasuke-kun realizes that hatred is not going to fill the void in his heart, he'll come back to Konoha. No one heard the silent snort Naruto did. But how will he realize it? Saya asked. I'll show him that love can fill anything. She stated proudly and Saya nodded slowly. Love can fill anything. But how do you know that what you're feeling is love? Sakura paused. Well, it's like a happy feeling that you get every time you see them, hear about them, or just think about them. You don't want that happy feeling to go away, so you try to spend every little time with them or about them. Naruto rolled his eyes at their conversion. Dear Kami, any more of this? Love conquers all. Bullshit and I may go insane. Shit. I forgot to pack my emergency sake. Great on a mission for knows how long and I can't even get a bit tispai. Withdrawal is going to be a bitch. 3 days later. The outskirts of Hai no Kuni. Can't kill yet. Can't kill yet. Can't kill yet. Naruto fidgeted on his spot as Yamato explained the plan. Of course Naruto wasn't listening, he didn't need to. They wait, ambush the poor son of a bitch, bring him back to Konoha, Naruto gets drunk and have a foursome. Simple and easy plan in his option. Naruto, Yamato said sternly and the blonde grunted. He then gave the blonde a scary look that sent shivers down Saya and Sakura's spine. Are you even paying attention? Yeah, stay and wait, the blonde mumbled and Yamato sighed before doing a few hand signs and becoming an exact replica of Sasori thanks to Sakura's help. Alright, here goes nothing, Yamato said in Sasori's voice as he made his way over to the Tenchi bridge. Kami, he just left and I'm bored already. Naruto complained as he sat and leaned back against a tree. Got to get my mind preoccupied before I say it. Maybe that's just what I need. Shut up and focus, Naruto. Sakura whispered back. This is probably the most important in my life, and I will not have you screw it up. Sure. Naruto dismissively as he looked over to his quiet teammate. Saya. Really, Naruto? Sakura snapped at him. Can you not think with your for 2 damn days? Well, for one it's been about 3 days and 2 I just trying to get to know her damn. If she's going to replace that asshole then I have to get all buddy-buddy with her even though she owes me a drink. Besides she's not my type. He snapped back. Oh, so you have types now. It seems Yamato-sensei is talking to the spy now. Saya said interrupting her 2 teammates and Naruto grinned. Fucking finally. Wait, is that Kabuto? And true to his word it was the white-haired shinobi that was currently talking to Yamato. And if Kabuto's here that means Orochimaru appeared behind Kabuto who ruined Yamato's disguise. Maybe I will get to kill something today. With Yamato. Yamato quickly brought space between him and Kabuto as Orochimaru chuckled. Kukuku, well it seemed my little experiment survived. Now why don't you call those 2 little mice out? Now this surprised Yamato. 2. He did the signal as Sakura and Saya appeared next to him. Where's? Well, if it isn't Orochi fucking Maru. Naruto said as he appeared behind the snake Sanin. Oh man, how I have missed you. I never got to thank you. He grinned. Oh Naruto-kun, I'm surprised that you're alive. Orochimaru said with a chuckle. I just have to tell Sasuke-kun about this. The snake Sanin grinned hoping to anger the blonde only to get a laugh in the face. And I'm surprised I don't see Uke-chan glued to your. What? Kabuto wasn't god enough for you. The blonde then dodged a fist and jumped back. Whoops, did I struck a nerve. Kabuto, deal with those fools. I'm going to have fun with Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Orochimaru said. If you want this hot you gotta work for it. Naruto chuckled as he took off into forest with Orochimaru behind him. Wait Naruto. Yamato tried to run after him but was kicked back by Kabuto. You'll have to get by me first. The glasses-wearing nin chuckled out as he adjusted his glasses. But Naruto-kun is not going to last long against Orochimaru-sama. Don't worry Yamato-sensei, I'll help him. Saya said as she quickly got the bird she made and flew into the forest. HMPH that's not fair. Kabuto said with grin as he avoided a punch by Sakura. With Naruto. Naruto ducked under a kick and sent a fireball towards the snake Sannin who only easily swerved around it. Kukuku you know it's foolish to fight me boy. Do I? He held up a hand as lightning surrounded it. Do I really? A beam of lightning was released from his hand as Orochimaru jumped away and did a couple of hand signs. Oh no you don't. Naruto stomped on the ground as spikes sprouted from the ground. Orochimaru quickly jumped back and landed in a tree branch. What strange justice you are using. I'm impressed. Well you can also fuck off. He jumped up to avoid another Orochimaru that tried to swipe him with his sword. Bang. Naruto let loose a fireball that crashed and exploded into Orochimaru only to reveal him to be a mud clone. He looked back over at the tree to find that Orochimaru gone. I hate to tell you this but I hate hide and seek. Tsunejishu. Multiple snakes shot up from the ground hoping to immobilize the blonde. Naruto jumped up and narrowly managed to dodge the snakes. Okay we're playing that game. He said as he stood in the air. He pointed a finger at the ground as lightning and fire surrounded similar to how it was in Suna as a ball formed in front of him. But there's no Kakashi this time. Taiyo. Boom. The ball flew down and let off an explosion that shook the whole forest before it the area gained a white light as everything was destroyed and incinerated. Dash opening parenthesis closing parenthesis dash. Saya struggled to stay on her bird as she looked at the destruction with wide eyes. He destroyed the whole area. There's nothing left. Kabuto stopped his fight to stare at the mushroom cloud with slight fear in his eyes. That wasn't Orochimaru for a fact. He muttered as the two other Konoha nins looked on with wide eyes. That power. It must be the Kyuubi's doing. Yamato thought. Naruto. Sakura thought worryingly. With Naruto. Naruto landed on the cracked and barren ground as he whistled. Papa did some work. He then looked around for his opponent. I know that didn't kill the. He whispered to himself. A sword suddenly flew and impaled Naruto in the shoulder. Gah. Orochimaru's head shot out of the ground as he latched on Naruto's neck. Son of a bitch. Naruto yelled as he grabbed Orochimaru and crushed his head only to reveal that as a mud clone. Naruto groaned and fell down to one knee as he took the sword out of his shoulder and set it on fire. You and that sword. Kukuku, you had me scared there for a moment Naruto-kun. Orochimaru said as he appeared and clapped his hands. You certainly have changed my perspective about you. Naruto gritted his teeth before smiling. Yeah well you can take that perspective and stick straight up your pail. Got to buy time. Orochimaru chuckled as he pulled out his real sword. I see that some things don't change. Not like it matters if I'm going to die but how's Uke-chan? He's still on about his psychopathic brother. Naruto grinned. Come on buy it you fucking bastard. Kukuku Sasuke-kun has proven himself more than ready to be my new vessel. I can say that not even you can face him in battle. Can't wait to see the look on your face when I ruin your personal toy. Naruto then internally grinned. I will bring him back to Konoha like I promised and you will be stopped in the process. Naruto yelled out with a surprisingly straight face. Don't laugh, don't laugh. Orochimaru only chuckled. Still the village idiot it seems. He then raised his sword. Too bad that you'll die here. He ran towards Naruto. Naruto grinned as he buried a hand covered in lightning in the ground. Orochimaru stopped running to see a large metal hand shot out from the ground. The snake Sannin jumped on it hoping to run towards the blonde, only to be electrocuted and flicked off. Ah! The snake crashed into the ground as his body shook in pain. This boy is something more. Shit, this body is rejecting me, I need to escape. Orochimaru tried to stand shakily, yet the hand gave him no pleasure as the hand slammed down on the ground, sending out a multiple waves of lightning. The snake Sanin cursed as he quickly did some hand signs. Kuchio's no jutsu. Rashomon. A large demonic gate appeared as Naruto's attack slammed in it. Boom. With Yamato. Damn it. Yamato cursed as Kabuto managed to cut his calf. The Junin saw a large demonic gate as another explosion rocked the area and the gate was destroyed. Kabuto whistled as he kicked Sakura away. I'll have to hand it Naruto-kun. To make Orochimaru-sama summon the gate is no laughing matter. That's not good, I have to get to Orochimaru-sama quickly. Take this Shanaru. Sakura yelled as she landed a jaw-breaking punch to a distracted Kabuto. The nin flew back but landed on his feet as he rubbed his aching and probably fractured jaw. His hands glowed green and he grinned through a bloodied mouth. I see that Tsunade didn't hold back in her training. Unfortunately, our time is done for now. Ta-ta. He then disappeared in a shunshin. Damn. Sakura cursed as she quickly went to Yamato's side. He escaped. Her hands glowed green as she touched the man's leg. Never mind that, we need to get to Naruto and Saya. Yamato said before his face turned to a frown. I never seen power like that. Yamato Taicho. The man shook his head. How long till my leg is healed? Well, he severed your gastrocnemius muscle. Shit, that sounds like a disease more than a piece of meat. Naruto said as he sat down. His jacket was gone and his gloves had scratches on them. Naruto. Both nins yelled. What? He then looked down. Yeah, I know I lost my jacket, and I just bought it too. What the hell happened back there and where is Saya? The Mokuten user practically yelled in his face. The blonde shrugged. The snake bastard is a slippery one, and as for Saya. The blonde rolled his eyes. Alright, as for her, who knows? Yamato paused before sighing. There's no need, she joined forces with Orochimaru. So that means I can kill her? Naruto asked hopefully. The Junin narrowed his eyes. No, if anything we'll bring her back to Konoha to be questioned. You have some explaining to do. Naruto scoffed as he rubbed his beard. Not much explaining, I overestimated my power and Orochimaru got away because of it. But it won't happen next time. Sakura rolled her eyes. And why not? Because I'll melt him, he said with a evil smile. With Orochimaru. Are you okay, Orochimaru? Kabuto asked as they ran through the trees. You seemed very quiet. Of course no, Kabuto. The Sannin spat out angrily. I almost died by that brat and those techniques of his, they were insanely powerful. Kabuto nodded. The Konoha nins seemed surprised too. It seems Naruto-kun learned a few tricks in these last 4 years. Orochimaru frowned. No, you fool. Imagine if we had that power on our side. That brat threw around the elements like it was a child's play toy. Orochimaru then chuckled. In fact, if these powers were in the right hands, this war would be over in an instant. Kabuto said with a small smile. But how are you going to get this power, more or less defeat Naruto? Orochimaru frowned again. This requires more precise thinking and planning. Of course, Orochimaru-sama. Now what are we going to do with our little friend here? Kabuto and Orochimaru took a glance back to see Saya running behind them. We'll make use of her, Kukuku. 30 minutes later. It took her fucking 30 minutes to heal one damn muscle. For Sake, I'll be surprised if the Uchiha's personnel didn't evacuated his base. Naruto thought as they landed behind a boulder with Orochimaru hideout just close by. Okay, here's the plan. And Naruto. No reply and the Junin glared. Naruto. What the is it? The blonde snapped back. I want you to listen to this plan very carefully. We are going to split up, but you guys under no circumstances are to face Orochimaru alone. He commanded and Sakura nodded sharply. Do you understand Genin Uzumaki, Naruto? Naruto internally glared. You piece of. Yes, Yamato Taicho. Fucking prick. Yamato nodded. Good, and if you do happen to run into Orochimaru or Uchiha Sasuke, I need you to flare your chakra. Both nins nodded and all three disappeared inside Orochimaru's hideout. Inside his hideout. With Naruto. HMPH Genin Naruto. Makes me sound like a weak failure. The blonde murmured as he opened a door to find a completely empty room. Damn, these assholes actually sleep on stone beds. How's that for back problems? He then chuckled to himself as he opened another door to reveal the same thing. Maybe I'll ask for a promotion when I get back. Naruto walked further down the corridor and opened another door to reveal an empty room. I swear to alcohol and women, if I find another empty room I going to blow this place up. He walked up to a door that was different than the rest. The blonde raised an eyebrow. Oh. He opened the door to reveal another empty room, but this time it seemed like an empty lab with empty tanks everywhere. Well, this might be interesting. He walked further in, inspecting the tanks. He tapped on the glass. Wonder what creepy crawlies the asshole kept in here. He then walked up to a computer and grinned. All right, now we're talking. He sat down and turned on the computer. The password. The blonde thought before grinning. Sasuke-kun. Beep. Damn. Sasuke-kuns. Beep. Sasuke's. Beep. The of Sasuke. Beep. Well, fuck, I'm out of ideas. Besides, it'll be stupid of him to leave anything behind anyway. Naruto stood up in the chair. Great, now what? Boom. The room shook and Naruto looked around before grinning. Hope they didn't start without me. With Yamato. This one seems empty too. Yamato said as he kept running down the hall. He then paused before jumping back from the sword swing that would have lopped of his head. He glared at his enemy. So I'm curious as to how you survived my little experiment. Orochimaru said with a chuckle as he held his sword to his side. Wouldn't you like to know? Yamato spat back before getting into a stance. The snake Sanin only grinned wider. Now what's with the hostility? I only want to talk. He then had to duck under the block of wood that was swung at him before delivering a kick to Yamato's chin, sending the Junin stumbling back. The snake Sanin slipped behind him and sent out an elbow to the back of his head. That's not going to work. Yamato ducked under the elbow and sent out a fist to the Sanin's face that was caught by his hands. You trained well. Gotcha. Mokuten. Mokusei no Kimusho. Wooden blocks sprouted from Yamato's back as it wrapped around and trapped Orochimaru. The snake Sanin only looked on with a smile. And now, Yamato couldn't finish because he was kicked to the side by another Orochimaru. The jutsu released and that Orochimaru revealed itself to be a mud clone. Kukuku, did you think it was going to be that easy? Yamato got up shakily and glared at the snake nin. Boom. Oh my. That doesn't seem like a good thing. Orochimaru said with a small frown and sunk to the ground, leaving a confused and worried Yamato. With Sakura. Sakura ran to the ruined side of the hideout to see Saya on her knees. Saya. Sakura screamed as she ran and grabbed the shocked girl by her collar. What the hell were you thinking? However, the girl didn't respond or look in Sakura's direction. In fact, she was looking behind Sakura. Is that Sakura? A voice called from above. Sakura froze in her spot and slowly let go of Saya. That versus voice. She slowly looked behind her and gasped. It's been a while. Sasuke-kun. Sakura stuttered out with wide eyes. Saya looked at the two with a slightly confused look and Sakura finally snapped out of her state and glared at Saya. I will not allow you to hurt Sasuke-kun. Saya just shook her head. I don't want to kill him anymore. I want to help you and Naruto bring him back. She said with a small smile and Sakura happily returned it back. Naruto. That idiot must be here as well. The Uchiha said in a cold tone that actually sent shivers down Sakura's spine. No, I won't be scared anymore. I'll bring him back, she thought confidently to herself. Sasuke-kun, I will bring you. Sasuke appeared in front of her, his face next to her ear as he placed a hand on her shoulder. Sakura, it's so good to see you again. He said and a blush covered the pinket's surprised face. What? Sasuke reached back with his other hand and grabbed his sword. Killing you will take me a step further. he emotionlessly as he positioned his sword behind her back. His wrist was caught by Saya, who gave the Uchiha an impassive stare. I'm afraid I can't let you do that, she said. Sasuke only grinned. And what make you think that you can stop me? Holy shit, it is Sasuke. A voice called out before a foot to the face sent the Uchiha away. Finally, my day is getting better, Naruto said with a big grin as he appeared next to a still shocked Sakura. Damn, what you do to her? Naruto whistled out. Naruto, Sasuke stated as he got up and grabbed his sword. I'm surprised you managed lay a hand on me. Then again, you caught me by surprise and it won't happen again. Naruto smirked as he held a finger out. I'm just happy I get to keep my promise. Ha, you're too weak to bring me back to Konoha. Sasuke chuckled out. Wrong promise. Bang. Sasuke dodged the fireball and blocked the punch Naruto sent out. You're much faster than last time, Sasuke said with a smirk as he grabbed onto Naruto's fist. Chidori Nagashi. Currents of lightning expelled from Sasuke's body, shocking the blonde man. He was then kicked away by the Uchiha. Okay then, Naruto said with a grin and wiped the blood from his lips. Guess we're going to go with lightning today. He stood up straighter. Now before I whoop your, tell me, was training under Orochimaru worth all the trouble you gave us? Sasuke smirked. Wouldn't you like to know, loser? But to answer your question, yes, it was. I'm now strong enough to kill Itachi. Ha ha ha. The blonde laughed and Sasuke's smirk widened. Laughing cause you're afraid. Don't worry, I'll put you out of your misery soon. His sword was then covered in lightning. Few haven't laughed that hard in a while, Naruto said as he grinned. Now let me show you how wide our power gap is. Yoroi. Naruto was covered in yellow armor that buzzed with energy. He vanished in a flash, leaving a sound that sounded like the crack of thunder. Sasuke's smirk vanished as a fist connected with his cheek, sending the Uchiha to the side. Wah! The Uchiha was kicked in the chin, sending him up in the air. In a flash of light, Sasuke was punched in the air. In another crack of thunder, the Uchiha was kicked to the side. Saya and Sakura watched in amazed eyes as the Uchiha was being tossed around like a ragdoll before an axe kick sent him down to the ground with a loud crash. Such power. Saya thought in shock and blushed a light red. Naruto landed on the ground, still covered in his armor, with a grin. Still think you can kill Itachi? Naruto taunted before Senbons made of lightning were sent flying towards him. Seriously, did Orochi-chan the suck the supposed genius out of you last night? Naruto said with a smirk as he stood and allowed the Senbons to hit him. Only they disappeared when they made contact with Naruto's armor. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Ho-ho, switching it up, Naruto said with a grin as the huge fireball came hurling towards him. He grinned as he held out his hand and the fireball stopped and decreased in size till it was nothing. Sasuke, however, used it as a distraction and swung his sword, hoping to cut Naruto in two. The blonde blocked the sword with his armored hand and grinned when he saw red eyes glaring into his own. He sent out a kick, but the Uchiha quickly dodged it and did an upward slash with his sword. I see you became stronger over the years, but it's still nothing compared to me, Sasuke said as he jumped back and did a few hand signs. Chidori. Please. Compare our strengths is like comparing a cat to a lion. Naruto held up a finger as the energy from his armor traveled up, making a large yellow and blue ball of lightning. At least a cat knows when to run. Sasuke gritted his teeth and ran towards Naruto. The blonde smiled and sent his ball down with a flick of his finger. Hakai. If I go on this mission and I see this asshole, I'm going to kill him. Wait, Naruto, no. Sakura screamed as she finally snapped out of her trance, but it was too late. Boom. Sakura slowly opened her eyes to find herself on an ink bird. Wah. She saw her teammate Saya giving her a small smile as she had her paintbrush and scroll out. Thanks, Saya. The Pinkett then looked down at the large cloud of debris as the hideout was completely ruined. He did this. Naruto. Sasuke-kun. She yelled out. The cloud disappeared to reveal Naruto panting in one knee. His armor cackled around him. In front of him was a large unmoving snake and behind him was a cracked wooden sphere. However, there was no sign of the Uchiha and Naruto couldn't find his scent, meaning one of two things. He lay waste to the bastard and completely erased him from the earth. Or, and seeing the large dead snake, Orochimaru saved his puny. The blonde gritted his teeth as he got up and dismissed his armor. Should I got too reckless and let the bastard get away? He then blocked the punch that was sent at his cheek. You know, now is really not the time to mess with me. The blonde growled as he pushed Sakura back. Why, you idiot? You could have killed us, she said angrily as she looked over for a certain Uchiha. Well, I didn't, or the Uchiha for that matter. Naruto snapped back and frowned when as he saw the sphere disappear to see a hardened Yamato. Great, now I have to deal with the pink harpy and the wooden dildo. Somewhere. So what do you think? A deep voice rumbled. The plan is perfect, but how? I wouldn't worry about that. In fact, you shouldn't worry about nothing. Everything will fall in play. Eyes narrowed at him. Well, it should. Failing is not an option. Of course not. Who do you take me for? In fact, I feel as though you are question my strength. The deep voice growled. Among other things. Enough, the both of you. A hardened voice called out and the two voices mumbled out an apology. I do not like to have my time wasted. Are the preparations ready? Of course, sir. We are ready on your command. The deep voice said. Suddenly someone appeared in a poof of smoke. Sir, I bring you news. He handed the figure of authority a letter. The figure was silent as he read through the letter before grunted. It seems we have a change of plans. Are they drastic? Not as I see it. The figure hummed in thought. Put Operation 1 on hold. We will wait for now. What? You can't be serious. A wave of killer intent hit them and both figures plus the messenger were sent to the ground. You will learn your place and know better than to question my authority. We will hold back for now until the signal is given. Do I make myself clear? Both figures and even the messenger nodded their heads quickly and the killer intent vanished. Good. Then we are done here. In Hai no Kuni, some small town. Ah. Naruto sighed in content as he sunk himself in the hot springs, the heat relaxing his stiff muscles. He took a drink from his bottle and leaned back on his arm. Man, I really needed to get away from them. Tsunade would definitely have my head if I killed them. He mumbled. Of course he's trying to avoid his teammate and temporary team leader. After what happened at Orochimaru's hideout, Sakura kept on preaching about how he shouldn't feel animosity towards the Uchiha, that they're always a team and other annoying bullshit of the sort. Now usually Naruto could easily block out the sound of her voice, but then came the tree hugger yapping on about teamwork, self-control, respecting your superiors, yada yada. Naruto tried to ignore him in his usual fashion until Yamato threatened to sell him out to Tsunade. Well, that didn't end pretty, which is why he's hiding himself in the hot springs. For their protection, of course. So I didn't kill anybody, but at least I have some alcohol. Naruto grinned as he took a chug. I just got to last a day, then I can cuddle in Kurenai-chan's warm soft. Oh, I didn't know you were in here. Naruto sighed in irritation. Yeah, well, there's more hot springs than this. Naruto turned around and got a full glance of Saya with a small towel that tried its best to hide her modesty. Yeah, but they have people I don't wish to conversate with, she said as she walked to edge. Do you mind? She held a slight smirk that she thought was friendly enough. Is she doing this on purpose? Well, two can play at that game. Naruto smirked back. Not at all. Here, let me help you in. He stood up, showing his sculpted upper body as the water barely hid his manhood. Saya actually blushed, which contrasted greatly with her pale skin as she took Naruto's hand and led herself inside the body of water. What is this feeling? Is this lust? Is this love? Gah. Those books are so hard to decipher. Oblivious to her thoughts, Naruto's smirk widened. You know, Saya, we are in the water, you don't need your towel. He said huskily. But we are two different genders. A warm feeling flooded her stomach before it transferred between her legs. So, Naruto chuckled. We're born. We shower. Hell, we probably fought. Nudity should have no effect on us. He moved closer so that he gripped her towel. Can I? The book didn't telling me anything about this. This feeling between my legs, it's so uncomfortable. She shifted her legs and nodded slowly. Great. And just like she was relieved from her towel, the cloth thrown at the ground. See, that's better, Naruto said with a grin as he leaned back on the edge and grabbed his bottle. Want some? Saya instinctively wrapped her arms around her chest to cover up. What is it? The blush still on her face as the area in between her legs throbbed. Naruto swung the bottle gentle in front of him. Something that'll make you feel better. Maybe he knew what was going on between her legs and was trying to help. So with a shaky hand she grabbed the bottle and took a few sips before coughing. Someone's a newbie. He chuckled again as he took his bottle back and took a swig. Now for the real fun. So I got a question, why do you proceed on calling me? Saya finally got her coughing under control and tried to smile. Well, that's my new nickname for you. I must do something about this feeling. He raised an eyebrow. Oh really? He then stood up showing the girl his rather large anatomy. How about we change it too? He chuckled out as he saw her surprised face. Saya felt the heat between her leg increased as she stared at it. The book said the average size is about 5 to 6 inches. He has to be at least an inch up and he's not even hard. I. What's wrong, Saya-chan? Naruto grinned deviously as he walked closer. You're looking a bit red. He backed her up against the edge and trapped her against it. That's when he smelled it, even it was diluted by the water. His eyes darkened. Maybe you can help me. The book never told me about this feeling. She stuttered as she felt him on her stomach. Control. We're going to teach her to call us. Oh, I'll help you, Saya-chan. Naruto said before he grabbed the back of her head and mashed their lips together. MMPH. Saya was surprised by the move which allowed Naruto to stick his tongue inside her mouth as it explored her moist cavern. This is a kiss. It feels so nice. Saya relaxed against him and instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck, bringing him closer. Oh, I'll help you, all right. Naruto thought deviously as he moved one hand to grab a pail. Her pink nipple contrasted greatly against the rest of her skin. Saya moaned in his mouth as he squeezed her and pinched the nipple. He then broke the kiss to trailed his way down her neck with nips and kisses to her. He took a bud in his mouth as he kneed the other. Saya moaned louder as she placed a hand on his head. Gah, this heat between my legs is killing me. As if hearing her thoughts, Naruto twirled her nipple in his mouth before letting it out with a wet pop. He grabbed her by the waist and hoisted her up so that she was seated on the edge, her glistening slit in his face. I need to fix the problem from the source. He grinned and Saya looked at him confused. What do you Naruto immediately attached his mouth to her lower lips. Saya quickly fissed his hair as her body shook in pleasure. Naruto licked up and down her slit slowly as he flicked her budding nub with his tongue and grinned when Saya moans got louder. He applied pressure to his tongue on her nub as one hand gently rubbed her hips. The other hand circled her opening before Naruto pushed one finger in. Saya jumped like she was shocked and moaned loud enough for her to be heard in the other baths. Naruto grinned into her as her grip on his hair tightened. Naruto. It's so good. I want more. Please more. She moaned out. Naruto just thrust his finger in and out of her as he focused on her nub. Saya writhed over him. I can't take. I'm gonna explode. Her body convulsed as pleasure upon pleasure racked her body. Her vision turned white as she slumped forward. It's always the first orgasm that brings me joy. Naruto said as he removed his finger and licked away Saya's juices before he caught her limp body. Don't tell me she passed out. I mean, come on, I know it's her first time, but still. The next day, outside of Konoha, Team 7 was very quiet as they walked towards the large gates that protected Konoha. Final fucking Lee. Naruto thought as he sighed loudly before looking over at Saya with a slight grin. The girl avoided his gaze and blushed, not knowing if what happened between them the night before was a dream or reality. Though she secretly hoped for the latter. Sakura frowned as she caught Naruto's grin and how quiet Saya was being, well quieter than usual. Don't tell me. Hey Saya, are you okay? The root nin jumped in surprised. Oh, of course Sakura-san. Why do you ask? Sakura walked closer to the girl and lowered her voice. Did he do anything to you? Naruto internally snorted and rolled his eyes. Saya blushed darkened. Naruto. Please more. No Sakura-san. I just wish to be home. She tried to say confidently. That had to be a dream, but what a weird one. She gave the pinkett a small smile. Sakura returned the smile and placed a hand on her shoulder. Okay, but we're teammates now, Saya. If you wanna talk, then I'm all ears. She then lowered her voice again. And if he gives you any problems, just tell me and I'll beat his. Naruto tried to hide his laughter with a loud cough. Ahem. Phew, hope I'm not getting sick. He grinned out. At least not with your bullshit. Tsunade's office. The mission to Taki. Suand asked in a more than usual stern voice. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. A success, Hokage-sama. Would you like to hear the report? Tsunade frowned. Did she want to? No. But does she have to? Unfortunately so. Protocol is protocol. Unfortunately or fortunately, for Tsunade's case, there was a loud poof of smoke before Team 7-1 person stood in front of her. Team 7 reporting. Where's Naruto? Yamato stopped and looked to Sakura and Saya, both of whom shrugged their shoulders. In a flash of light, Naruto appeared shirtless, opening up a bottle of alcohol. Sorry, but Papa waited too long. He said with a grin as he took his first gulps before a wave of arousal hit his nose. He stopped drinking to see a lustful Kurenai and her team. His eyes quickly raked over her form before turning to his team leader. Yamato just gritted his teeth in frustration. Like I said, Team 7 reporting a failure. Team 8 and Kurenai widened their eyes in surprise, and Naruto just took another sip from his drink. I see. Tsunade said as she avoided looking at Naruto. The blonde man just frowned. I want a full report. She said sternly before looking over at Team 8. I shall expect a report from you, Kurenai, but for now your team is dismissed. Kurenai nodded as her team left, with Hinata taking a long glance at the blonde womanizer who scratched his chest. Kurenai locked eyes with Naruto and gave him a quick smirk, one which he returned. Yamato cleared his throat as he reported to Tsunade their mission. However, Naruto went to challenge the Uchiha alone and completely destroyed their base. But besides that, we got no information on their plans. Tsunade grunted. I guessed as much. Well, Team 7, you will be given rest days till I call upon you again. You are dismissed. Tsunade closed her eyes and rested her chin on her hands as three puffs echoed around the room. However, she knew that she wasn't alone. What do you need, Genin Uzumaki? Well, for one, can you people stop referring me by that useless rank? Naruto growled as he placed both hands on her desk and leaned forward. It's what you are, Naruto. He growled again. And another thing, why won't you look at me? He then sighed. Please look at me, Tsunade. Hearing his tone of voice, the buxom slowly focused her hardened gaze on him. Satisfied, she spat out. If that's all, you can leave my office. Are you still pissed about your necklace? Tsunade glared as she shot out of her seat and quickly got in Naruto's face. Still pissed. Still pissed. That necklace was embedded with Nawaki and Dan's dream for this damn job. It's practically all I have left of them. Naruto shook his head with a dry chuckle. Did you know the powers that necklace held? Tsunade's eyes widened before she looked away. So you did. Well, that one suspicion down. Naruto said as he shook his head. You wanna know the truth as to what really happened with your necklace, Tsunade? Tsunade visibly flinched. Flashback. 4 years ago. If you wanted to get out that badly, all you had to do was say please. Naruto reached for the paper that held the seal with a hand, grabbed his wrist and threw him away. Naruto landed on his with a groan. Ow, what the hell? I didn't think I would see you this early. Naruto looked up and his jaw slacked as he gazed upon the person that threw him back. Why, you're Yondaime. I'll devour you to pieces, you filthy shit. Kyuubi screamed as it trashed around its small prison violently. The Yondaime chuckled. Why don't we got some place more quieter? After all, I like to speak to my son in peace. Now nothing in the world would have shocked Naruto more than hearing that he was the son of Konoha's most strongest and loved people. The blonde sat there in shocked silence as the Yondaime raised his hand, probably to take them somewhere else. Naruto then shook his head as he remembered his current predicament. And no. Minato looked at his son confusingly. Wah. I mean no. You will not take me anywhere from that fucking fox. Naruto said as he stood up and glared. Especially after all the shit you involuntarily placed me through. Minato was now shocked at his son. BW ha ha ha. Yes. Now release me, maggot. Oi, shut the fuck up. Naruto yelled back at the fox, who growled and slammed against his cage. Naruto looked and saw the area darkening more. He proceeded to walk towards the fox's cage when Minato got in his way. Look, I'm sorry for what I put you through, son. But freeing the beast is not going to help no one. Minato said seriously, and Naruto laughed. Well, if you haven't noticed, father, I'm dying and well, I have nothing holding me back. He took a step further and the Yondaime stood his ground. If you free the Kyuubi, it'll wreak havoc on the whole world and attack Konoha. Do you really want that? Naruto just laughed again. Even my own father takes me for a fool. Of course I know that, but here's what you don't know. You got to give, to get. A rule that all demonic creatures abide by. And our little furry friend over there is exactly that. A demon. I see. The Yondaime whispered. But Naruto, you can't let your hate and anger of you village blind you. You know you're starting to annoy me, father. But the fox will return home after this, right? Naruto called out and the fox growled. Good. He walked forward and Minato tried to grab his shoulders only for his hand to go through him. It seems like your time is almost done, father. Naruto, don't. Oi, fox. Here's my demands. You heal me, and return to hell, and I'll free you from this prison. Naruto said, ignoring his father's words. Fine, ninjin. Free me and you shall be safe from death and your world left alone. Kyuubi bellowed out and Naruto grinned as he grabbed onto the paper. Welp, here goes nothing. Naruto ripped the seal as the darkness began to close around him. However, a green tendril grabbed his hand and tried to hold the gate back in a weak attempt. The fuck? He looked down and saw the source coming from his chest. With his other hand he pulled off the Shadaime's necklace. Sorry, Tsunade. Naruto whispered as he crushed the mineral in his hand. BW ha ha ha, freedom is mine. Kyuubi roared as Naruto's vision went white. Flashback ended. Tsunade stood in shock as Naruto narrowed his eyes at her. So how long were you going to keep my heritage in the dark? He paused and tapped his chin in thought. Actually, scratch that, I don't care. How rich am I? Tsunade finally got over her shock and sighed sadly. Naruto. You can't really blame you, father. I can, but am I going to? Nah, I'm a simple but smart man. So how much we talking? Tsunade got a somber look in her eye, something Naruto didn't like seeing on her. I'm sorry that I kept the knowledge of you, father, away from you. She tried apologizing, but he held a hand up to stop her. He then sighed as his eyes got softer. Don't blame yourself. Stop blaming yourself for everything. He then took a step forward and trapped the shocked woman between her desk as he looked into her own brown eyes. For Dan, Nawaki, hey, even something as stupid as my heritage. Tsunade tried to step away but found herself stuck in a very tight situation. Don't. She tried to say but ended up looking away. Naruto gently grabbed her chin and lifted her tearful face to look at his. Is this what the fearless Senju Tsunade has come to? He whispered. By crushing that damn necklace I freed you from its curse, its bad memories. His eyes then roamed her face. And by doing that I feel more comfortable to do this. He leaned forward, pressed his lips to hers. Tsunade, internally, was surprised, but her body remained stiff and frozen. He's kissing me. Something kickstarted in her brain and she immediately wrapped her arms around his head and deepened the kiss. Naruto's hand wrapped itself around her waist while the other one laid flat against the desk. Alright, I'm not a bloody mess. Now let's have some fun. He thought with a mental grin and pressed his front against hers. With his idle hand he reached behind her and squeezed her. Tsunade moaned. Wait. Naruto. She tried to say through another moan as he was slowly ground himself onto her and kissed her neck. Naruto. We can't. She finally managed to place a hand on his chest and created space between them. We can't. It's not right. Though her face said otherwise. Why not, Tsunade? When are you going to let someone take care of you? He let out a quick chuckle. I learned that this world is much easier to live in when you have someone at your side. He grabbed the hand on his chest and placed it on his bearded face. Let me ease your troubles. He captured her lips again with little resistance and held her body to his. Naruto lifted her up and sat her on her desk. A grin formed on his face as reached up and cupped one of Konoha's most prized possessions. Fuck it. Tsunade threw away all her thoughts and slammed her lips to Naruto. Finally. So what are you waiting for, brat? Tsunade grinned out as she disconnected their lips. Show me why you're the great womanizer of the South. She taunted him with his annoying alias. With a challenging grin he grabbed her shirt and ripped in two, taking the useless material that held her glorious and throwing it to the side. Show me what I missed. She moaned out as he immediately latched on a hardening nipple. He licked her nipple as a hand rubbed and squeezed the other. Her moans increased as she placed a hand on the back of his head, pushing him closer to her chest. Please, Naruto. She cried out and Naruto knew exactly what she wanted. He just wanted to have some fun. He let go of her nipple with a wet plop and grinned. What do you want, Tsunade? He pressed a hand against her wetness and the older woman practically melted on spot. Do you want me to worship your body nice and slow? He slowly teased her as his other hand fingered the hem of her pants. Or, he stopped his motions. Do you want me to ravish you body like a wild animal? Tsunade cried out in pleasure as his hand dipped in her pants and plunged a finger into her wet slit. She shuddered against his hand and leaned back on her hands. I want you to ravish me. She said quietly, her eyes closed in pleasure. Naruto's grin threatened to split his face and he stopped his motions. What was that, Su-chan? Did I hear that you wanted it slow? He slowly, almost achingly, trailed a finger up and down her slit. Tsunade whined as she bit her lip and tried to create more friction. He's playing me. He slowly dipped his tongue out and licked her neck. But I like it so much. Please, Naruto. He stopped and looked her in the eye. Take my body like the wild animal I know you can be. She said sensually, all resistance and second thought gone from her mind. Tsunade gripped his hardened member through his pants and it was Naruto's turn to groan. You want an animal. He suddenly backed up and switched her around so that her front was pressed against her desk. Her was out to him and he smelt her overwhelming arousal and he grabbed the hem of her pants. You got one. In one fluid motion he slid down her pants and underwear revealing her glistening slit. Tsunade brought herself up and tried to look behind her but froze when something big and wide pressed against her heat. Naruto's hand gripped her hips. You still got a chance to back out. He teased himself with her slit and Tsunade's moan echoed around the office. Any louder and Shizune may walk in on us. Yet the thought only excited him more. I want this. She said through her moans and Naruto gave a small chuckle before he sheathed himself fully in Tsunade. Ah! She cried out as she shuddered against him and Naruto paused to get her used to his length. Tsunade took a deep breath and looked back to give Naruto another sensual smirk as she moved her hips on her own. Naruto only grinned as he placed on hand on the desk and thrust his hips forward. Tsunade's eyes widened and she let out a silent scream as Naruto, true to his word, pumped in and out of her like a wild animal. The desk shook and groaned with each thrust and Tsunade blindingly reached out to grab the edge. She finally found her voice and the office was filled with her moans, the desk's squeaks, and the sound of skin slapping against each other. Naruto lifted her body up so that her back was pressed tightly to his front as he rammed in her and gripped both her. More. Kami. More. Suan cried out and Naruto gritted his teeth as increased his pace. Yes, Naruto. Tsunade reached back and turned her head to lay a sloppy kiss to Naruto's lips. He released her to rub over her body. Tsunade shivered as her first orgasm raged throughout her body. Luckily her mouth was preoccupied with Naruto's or else everybody in the tower would have heard the great Senju Tsunade screams of pleasure. Her body went partly limp as Naruto continued to piston himself in her. His hold on her never faltered as she shuddered again and this time her body went full limp. Yet as kept milking him for what he was worth. He felt the familiar tightening sensation as he speed up his already erratic thrust. Oh shit, was the only warning he gave before he emptied himself in her. He panted as he pulled out and caught a Tsunade before she fell. Well damn, how do I go about this? Naruto asked himself.